Hey, Connie.
Hey, Jess.
Hey, thanks for being here. I just want to start off first with giving you the opportunity to introduce yourself and, give me some history, like where did you go to school, where are you from, and what are you doing now, and how did you find yourself here?
Okay, so I'm Connie Mandeville. My family moved here from Michigan when I was 1, so in 1990, and we've lived here ever since. I graduated from Peru back in 2008. And from there, I studied history and women's studies at Hobart William Smith Colleges in Geneva, New York. And then I came home for a little bit. I actually worked at the Kent Lord House Museum.
Oh, cool.
And then I started grad school to study public history in focusing on museums. And I went to the University of South Carolina, and that was actually the oldest program in the country.
Wow.
And I went there for a few years, and I didn't end up finishing. I came home, and my dad had broken his knee, so I came home to help with that.
Yep.
And I actually covered his classes for a semester because he couldn't teach.
You taught them? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool.
And then about a year later, I started working for Billy Jones. I actually started as an intern.
Okay.
And then 2 weeks later, I was hired. And then from there, I moved up to chief of staff. I've been chief of staff for a little over a year now. So
Nice. Awesome.
And I guess I got here because I think shortly after you created the group, I was added.
Yep.
And which makes sense to me because of who I am. And I've always kind of been involved in politics since I was young.
Okay.
And because my dad's always kind of been involved with Democrats around the area. So as a kid, I went to I remember going to a Democratic fundraiser at a house by the lake. And I remember when I was really little. And then as I got older, I got to meet Hillary Clinton when she was senator.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I also met Elliot Spitzer before his fall from grace.
Okay.
But that was a big deal back then.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he was the first Democratic governor in a while. So that was pretty cool until
it wasn't.
Yeah, until he got caught with sex workers, whatever. It's, Democrats and Republicans have their faults. It's both of them.
Right.
And so I've always been kind of involved in politics. And so I got invited to the group. And with my job, my boss was invited, and I kind of said, I wouldn't mind speaking if you need speakers. And so I did. And I talked about, this is kind of goes into part of why I ended up dropping out of not finishing grad school. I was pretty much almost done, but I just didn't do my dissertation. And it was because when I went to a conference, actually, because that's a big thing in grad school. You're supposed to try to get out in the professional world and go to conferences. Yeah. And I did a poster presentation about transgender rights, actually, in museums. And that's why I was there. And I met these two men at the hotel bar and was so.
Yeah.
And that's what I spoke about. And I know, I've gotten a lot of feedback, so I know it was a moving speech. So I don't want to be conceited, but I know it was. So.
It was.
And that's.
It was. It was. Partly. It's a significant happening in your life that not only shifted what you were doing in the moment for work, but it also just, I think, now is such an important message for women, and not just women, but people that are dealing with the environment that we're all living in the LGBTQ community right now. And yeah, your speech was, people were reaching out to me saying, how can I get a hold of the girl that was talking about this thing that happened to her? And so, yeah, I'm so appreciative of your vulnerability during that time, because there was hundreds of people there. And public speaking is not easy for a lot of people, and to publicly speak about that, you obviously impacted me, because shortly afterwards I reached out to you and said, hey, I'm going to be creating a committee, a local committee of, vested people who have, finger on the pulse as to what's happening in our culture and political culture. And I invited you to be part of that. So thanks for being here. I think really the reason why I wanted you to come today is because we're all kind of reeling after last week's loss. you working in the political environment as well as living in the LGBTQ community, it's like a unique perspective from both sides. And one would say it's almost nearly impossible to, like, all of us had to go back to work. You know, like, I called in that day, and I have friends who called in that day, but I had to go back to work, but I'm a nurse. I don't know how you go back to work in a political environment where you feel like, personally, I use the word betrayed. Maybe that's not how you felt, but that's why I think that it's important to have you here, because we don't have an option but to move forward. And I think it's like you're an inspiration in a way, because if you're able to get up every day and find a reason to still go to work in a political position, essentially, or for somebody who's in a political position, what is your advice for those of us? Because it's like, for me, it's easy for me to say, but for somebody in your shoes, you know, what's gotten you through?
Okay. Well, it was rough last week. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
It was just hard to concentrate and do things. I think everyone kind of felt that.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I was exhausted, honestly, because I worked the polls the day before too. So that didn't help, because that's from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Yeah.
But I think, well, we're in a decent place in New York State, which helps that if I focus more on doing things at a state level, it's a lot better than federal level. Mm-hmm. We can make a difference. Like, Prop 1 passed.
Yes. Hallelujah. God.
And
I was sweating it out there for a minute.
Exactly. But so at least we have those protections.
Right.
And so I know that, one, I'm protected as an employee. Mm-hmm. For now, I mean, we have a lot of state protections, and I think that's what gets me through things. But and the fact that even whatever's happening nationally, I can still make a difference within my own communities. And it's not just my job. I like my job, and we do a lot of different things for the community, especially like funding wise.
Right.
But it's really, I get involved in other things, and through other things I find out about a lot, and I'll take that back to work, honestly.
Yeah.
So like I mean, this isn't happening now, but back in 2020, when the whole police shooting stuff came up again, I mean, that's nothing new, but there was a lot of energy around it in 2020. So there's the marches.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I mean, we have this conversation now about kind of almost performance versus actually following through with things. And a lot of people went to that protest and it made them feel good. That's great. But what about after?
Right.
And for me, so that's when I got involved. I wanted to actually use my more museum degree. I got involved with Underground Railroad Museum. And I mean, that history is about the escape from slavery. So I figured that was a good way of getting that story told, so people have more of a historical context. When I was in grad school, one of my professors, who was the past president of the National Council for Public History, made us read his speech from the annual meeting. But it stuck with me because he used a quote from Booker T. Washington that said, "Cast your buckets where you are." And it's this idea of getting out in your community. And for me, that's always been learning about the history. So I think that's important to know where we came from. But also just getting to know your neighbors, so you're not a stranger. They don't just see you for a label. They see you as a person, and it helps people connect. And I've had that. I mean, I did that when I was in South Carolina. I did that when I was in undergrad, just finding out your resources and what's around you. And so I got involved at the museum. On the board. I was a volunteer there. I didn't do it this year because I was a little too busy. I needed a break.
You don't say.
And so, but it's really good. That's where I found a lot of comfort, and I wanted to do more. And one thing that I also did was I knew someone, one of my friends from high school started a art center around here, and I invited her I wasn't part of Kiwanis back then, so I invited her to Kiwanis. And she had just come back from Rochester, and she spoke about doing a law enforcement or for PTSD art program.
Okay.
For law enforcement and also like for veterans. And I connected her with the state police to maybe start the conversation with that, and then told my boss about it, and we have been funding it for the past couple years.
That's amazing. Can you say who your friend is?
Megan Charlin. She's at the Strand now. We do it through the Strand.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that is like, for those people who follow, my videos and my last live where I look like a train wreck first thing in the morning, where I'm basically trying to pull people from the state of mind of being paralyzed and going down these rabbit holes. Because as you can imagine, and I'm sure in the work you do, you understand this, you want to be informed, but there is a line where you become
jaded,
bitter, scared, paranoid. And then you're paralyzed, and you need to bring it back to, like you're saying, to community. So it's this whole show up that where it's evolved is, so we had the marches, right? Very, very political, in your face. This it's inspiring. It's all those things, but to take away from that every event that I'm encouraging that the women in these states and even in the red states, because when you talk to these people, they don't have the protections that we necessarily do here, and it's heartbreaking. And so in trying to navigate that is connecting with people again, bringing it back down to the basic core of just, even if they look different, and if you don't know, it's okay to say, I don't know. Like, am I using the wrong language? Because we were talking before we started filming about how the right is always supporting each other. It feels that way anyways, that it doesn't matter even if they don't agree with everything they say, and some of them say crazy wild things, but the Democratic side to the liberal side, we tend to pick each other apart more, and that goes both directions, whether it's you're kind of middle of the line and you're like, well, the transgender thing, or the transgender community is kind of like, well, you're not really that supportive of us, so we're just not going to vote. And we saw that happen in the election. Millions of people didn't vote. And how do we just stop the bullshit and say, okay, I'm going to find out who my neighbors are. I'm going to find out commonality of what we want to achieve together. So you brought together two very different groups of people that otherwise would have never even probably gotten to know each other. The art community and then the police department. I would have been it's like shooting a dart at a board going, yep, those are the two people. I mean, that's probably an idea. We could play that game, shoot some darts at a board of random groups and then make them do things together. I mean, it's brilliant in a way, because I think that's what's wrong and has become wrong with this country, is that we have broken apart each other in puzzle pieces. Like, oh, you belong here, you belong here, you belong here. But then we've just forgotten that we're all human. And then we try to only associate with people that are 100% just only, have exactly 100% way of thinking as us. And so, without even knowing that that's what you were going to say, it makes me happy to know that that is where you're coming from, because that is the spirit of this group, is saying I don't want to check your registration status at the door at these events. I don't want to, are you a Republican or a Democrat? I don't want to know anymore. Honestly, I don't want to know. I want to know that you're willing to connect, you're willing to learn, and you're willing to understand. Because when you're willing to do those three things, you find out more about people, and then you become more empathetic to the human rights and the things that this group really was based upon. So I really appreciate that. From your perspective, how involved are you outside of your job? How involved are you in trying to get members of the LGBTQ community involved in politics? Do you find that it's very difficult? Do you find that it's like they're like completely disengaged, or that there's a fear of that?
I think I haven't done too much to try to get them involved, because I think right now there's a Plattsburgh Queer Collective that's formed, and they're just creating right now, focusing on community, which is what we need right now.
Support.
Yes.
Like support.
Like they do different events at Old Soul. They have on Monday, they're going to have a queer Thanksgiving potluck.
Oh, that's fun.
So it's stuff like that I think right now, because what happened, so I will give a little bit of background of some of my historical research. Yeah. I studied the Pride movements in the Southeast a little bit, mostly focusing on South Carolina. And a big thing with the Pride movements is that it really started out community. That's where they felt safe. And that's why you had gay bars and lesbian bars and all that stuff. And those have kind of died. We don't have one in Plattsburgh.
No.
And I don't even know if there's one in Burlington anymore. And
probably not.
So we've lost that kind of sense of community, unfortunately. I mean, there's a lot of it online. That's where, I mean, and there's a lot of safety, but also in that because people aren't necessarily always ready to come out.
Right.
But we have kind of lost that, and I think that's what they're trying to gain with these. But people I've found kind of just weary about politics. I personally, I like being behind the scenes. I have no intention of running for anything in the future. I mean, maybe years along the line, I wouldn't mind doing like county legislator type stuff. Right. But I like being behind the scenes because personally, I feel like that's where I can make more of a difference. Yeah. And I make it pretty clear, I think, in my office, I'm queer friendly and queer. So I found like I get a lot of that back, and even like when I'm in Albany, it helps. But I don't hide my identity, but I also
are more than that. Yeah. You don't want to only be identified. Like that's the only thing about you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you obviously have a very unique history, and honestly, take your sexual orientation aside, all of the things that you spoke about could have, you were a target of from two men, and really that speaks to many women. I don't know the specific statistic, but it's alarming. Yeah. So your sexual orientation, for me, I'm not saying it doesn't matter, because it does matter, but it's not everything that I did. Like, you don't want to be all encompassing as like this beacon of, but for me, it's like, I look at our local politicians and like, even down to the town level, which I'm trying to encourage every state to, I say state, obviously states are huge, but that's where I've started, to have multiple hosts within their states where they are trying to engage members to attend meetings, to attend community meetings. And it is something that I've thought about without having gone to a ton of them myself, because like I've admitted to the group many times, this is not something that I really have been involved in until recently. But there's always a starting place for everyone. So if you start going to these meetings, and I don't care who you are or who you sleep with or what you look like, if you start going to these meetings and you see a gap of representation of part of a community, like you're saying, there is no, other than like you're saying, some events in Old Soul probably, but like, and it is different online, in-person, safe spaces for groups that specifically right now feel like they need the extra support amongst each other. If you're attending these meetings and these town events, it would be my interest for these people to advocate for those things and to start having those conversations. And so within the Plattsburgh group, it would be great for me to have, because I can't go and speak. I will never go and speak for somebody else. I've been down that road, and I think a lot of our members with good intent, you've seen it with the whole, I'm going to wear the blue bracelet and I'm going to wear and we're like, please stop doing that, because it's created quite a conflict of controversy and how people feel. No one wants to be spoken for by a person who is not living in that life. But it would be great to see and hear from people in certain communities, diverse communities, in these town meetings that we've normally not seen regularly too. Not just like a one and done, and not just at like events where you march or you rah-rah, but like the smallest of ways. Tuesdays, your town meetings occurring, just consistently showing up and being somebody you connect with your members and the people that have a say. That's kind of we're trying to lead this group.
I will mention, though, there are a couple other, well, there's the Adirondack North Country Gender Alliance. They do, there's a Pride in Plattsburgh every year.
Okay.
In around end of September, October.
Yep.
And then they also do one in the Tri-Lakes region because one of their founding members, Kelly Metzger, she's located in Saranac Lake. So there's one always in there in June. But they also, there's this, I love this story. There's one in Malone. It's called Small Town Pride.
Wow.
And it started because I think he was 14 at the time. This young teenager from Malone wanted to go down to New York City Pride. And his parents were kind of like, I don't know if that's really appropriate for you. But so they came around and his community started a pride in Malone to show that we can do something like that here. And it's actually
pretty large.
You don't think that Malone is...
Yeah, for those of you who don't know who Malone is, Malone, New York, Google it. It's small.
Yeah, and rural and...
Very rural.
I mean, one of the main industries there's 3 prisons there.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's not known to be a progressive region at all.
No, I would not say that.
So, and to have that, like, I went there and presented a assembly citation to Garrett, is his name.
Okay.
And tried not to cry doing it because I was just like this little kid. Because I mean, I came out when I was his age. I was 14. I came out, but I started getting called when I was 12. I came out as bisexual when I was 14, and from there, I mean, I've always been I've kind of take on being the token queer.
Yeah.
Just because I never really thought about not being out. It just seemed, because my parents always kind of made it seem welcoming, and like I knew gay people, so I wasn't scared to come out. I was a little bit in regards to the people around me, but I was very unapologetic, and I don't know why. Because I know a lot of people that were closeted. Like, I was one of the only people out in my graduating high school class. I think there was myself and one other gay guy.
Okay.
I mean, people came out afterwards, but...
Yeah, you probably led the way.
I mean, I don't want to say that I'm a trailblazer, but, like, I've kind of taken that role upon myself, and it doesn't bother me. Like, when I moved to South Carolina, I was like, I'm not going to be closeted. I'm going to do my thing. And was involved in stuff. And now I actually do drag. And so I started...
Locally? Mm-hmm. So they do local drag shows in Plattsburgh?
Mm-hmm. There's 2 different groups that do them, yeah.
Is it at the Strand? Or
We've done it at the Strand, yeah. Okay. We do it sometimes at Good Times. We've done brunches at Old Soul. We go all over the place.
And these events can be found where? Like
usually Facebook is the best place.
In other like groups?
I know people posted a lot on Plattsburgh Street Team.
Okay. Oof.
But, I mean, and so one of my friends is opening a restaurant in Champlain. He's actually our house mother.
Okay.
And it's the Old Legion Theater so it's the Old Legion. Yeah. So there's also, like, a space in there. We've had a couple shows there, and he always posts it in the Rouse's Point groups, and he's like, I don't give a shit about these haters.
Yeah, because
like, I'm going to keep doing it.
I mean, good. I mean, I full-heartedly approve, because it really also, when you publicly advertise these things and then people feel completely comfortable coming right out there and saying the most inappropriate, ridiculous things, you're like, oh, well, I know who you are now. Yeah. So yeah, yeah, that's great to know that those things are happening. It's just without being in, and that's open to everyone. That's open to everyone to attend, and yeah.
I mean, it costs money usually. We'll take anyone's money.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. As long as you're supportive. You're supportive.
Yeah. I mean, but most people aren't going to pay to
be assholes. Yeah, they want to be free assholes.
But there's also, so I'm on the Clinton County, there's a Human Rights Commission. It's paid for, it's through the not the county legislature.
Okay.
We don't have much of a budget, but we exist. You have to get technically appointed, but
and what is that? Tell me more about that.
So there's the Division of Human Rights statewide.
Okay.
And we're kind of liaison between that. So if people have issues like discrimination in housing, employment,
okay,
we can help navigate a complaint with the state and go through that whole process. And so with that, because of that, I know that there is a larger movement within the North Country through the State Division of Human Rights where they're having these conversations about diversity and how to make it a little bit better. I saw they're creating videos kind of highlighting different experiences. Not necessarily I haven't seen too much focus on LGBTQ, but right now, like the video, if I remember correctly, had a lot about Akwesasne and also just being Black in the Adirondacks, because that's something that there's the Adirondack Diversity Initiative through ANCA, which is the Adirondack North Country Association. They get state funding every year. And to try to, there was the conference on Tuesday at Paul Smith's was through them. And that is something that they're raising awareness about, and they're having these conversations. There was even, I know the state police had a conversation about diversity and trying to like address issues within the state police and invited community stakeholders, and I went. And it was actually, I appreciate the conversation more than I thought I would.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, sometimes we surprise ourselves and we go to those things. I would love to know more about that. And so what does that money, like you say you get funded, what does that money typically go to?
Like they're different programming because they're a nonprofit. So like doing the conference, having resources for people. They have these conversations and workshops and.
Awesome.
And I know they offer training for law enforcement, like local law enforcement, because we've referred people who have had incidences with their local police to contact them because they can actually start this kind of conversation. Yeah.
That's good to know. And so just to kind of like come full circle, wrap up, because we obviously, this goes on a YouTube channel. We hope that, of the almost 22,000 members, that we get people that watch. What is the, like, if you wanted to say anything like on a platform to the members now that you want people to carry with them from the loss of the election, but into the future of what we're walking into, what would Connie say?
Well, I think getting involved locally is the best thing you can do. Mm-hmm. I know we focus a lot federally, but honestly, I know the Supreme Court, I'm not trying to dismiss the impact that like the reversal of Roe v. Wade and other things can have on us. But a lot of things happen locally, between the county legislator to state to your town board. And is to kind of get involved. And it doesn't have to be politics. Like my involvement with the Underground Railroad Museum, doing the Commission of Human Rights, I'm on the local library system board. Those are things that make an impact because libraries are a community resource for everyone. And they're like, we passed a policy about like basically saying that if people try to get them to ban books, that we're protecting them.
That's amazing.
So like it happens at levels you don't even think about. You don't have to run for office. No. You just have to get involved in the little things that are happening and go to events, show your support, spend your money local. That's the best way to, I think, to organize. Grassroots is what really gets us organized.
Absolutely. And you like mentioned like 15 places that I had only heard of just now. Yeah. Do you think it would benefit, and this would obviously benefit us, but if every community focused on finding one point person, much like yourself, who's just connected with like to then create like a informational sheet of like all these places, like because like for me it's like I want to people want to get involved. They want to get involved. They don't know where to start and they don't know who to ask. Mm-hmm. And I would dare say that even if I were to call some of my local politicians, they wouldn't have even known 3/4 of what you just said. Who is a good person that you could maybe think of like in that like is a person that somebody could call within their community, like that would have an idea? Or is it also fragmented with so many things it's hard to put all together?
I think it's hard to put all together. I think I'm sometimes an anomaly, unfortunately.
Yeah, right. So everyone needs to find Connie in their state. Good luck.
If you get involved within, like, if you start having conversations with different leaders, I think you'd find it. Because, like, when I was in South Carolina, there was the South Carolina Progressive Network. They still exist because I still see them on Facebook and follow them. And I think other places have stuff like that you can find, and they would have more of an idea of how to
Yeah.
get involved in
Well, maybe that's
community.
something you and I can work on for Plattsburgh.
Yeah.
That would be easy to put out for the members because I think they would also agree that they want to know all these things. But I can't thank you enough for being here. It's awesome. You're very interesting, very smart, and I'm very glad I have you in our back pocket
Yeah, no problem.
to reach out to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.